Today's shiur begins 10 lines from the top of Daf Ayin Hey. You will notice a Mishnah, a new Mishnah in the middle of the Omid. Before we begin the text, we glance at the side where we have a topic heading, which reads, Machlokes Tanoim, a Tanaic controversy, im mo'il haforas nedarim shel baal, is their effectiveness to the annulment of a husband's, the annulment of, on the part of a husband, of his wife's vows, al nidrei ishto meirosh, lifnei shi bichlal tidor, before she even utters a vow. Will his annulment be effective? The Mishnah. Ha'omer li'ishto. A man says to his wife, Kol hanedarim shetaduri mikan vi'ad ad she'ovoi mimokim ploni. All the vows that you make from now until I return from such and such a place. Harei hein kayomin. Here he attempts to substantiate her vows, to confirm her vows. These are vows that she hasn't even made yet. Lo omar klum. He has said nothing. In other words, something that hasn't been uttered yet, the substantiation of that is of no value. Harehe muforin. If, however, he declares null and void all vows that she will make from the time that he leaves until the time he comes back from that place, Rabbi Lezer Omer Mufa. Rabbi Lezer says it's effective. It's an effective annulment. And Rabbi Chachamim Omrim Eino Mufar. It's ineffective. Omar Rabbi Ozer. Rabbi Ozer, in arguing his point, says, Im Hofer Nedarim Shebo Lichlal Isur. If a person is able to annul vows that have already become a reality, the violation of them would be a prohibition, would be a sin. Lo yofer nedarim shelo bo'u lichlal isur. Should it not be all the more so that he's able to annul vows that haven't come to the realm of prohibition, that haven't come to existence? Omru lo. So the Rabbanon, the Chachamim, responded, Harehu Omer. The pasuk says, Isha yekimenu v'isha yefirenu. That's a quote from the pasuk. As shebo lichlal hakem, that which has come to be able to be substantiated, namely it's a real vow. Bo lichlal hafer, it comes to being subject to annulment. Lo bo lichlal hakem, vows that have not come to the possibility of being confirmed, namely they haven't been uttered yet. Lo bo lichlal hafer, likewise do not come to the realm of being annulled. So as far as vows that haven't been uttered yet and their ability of being substantiated, that everyone agrees doesn't exist. The Gemara focuses on Rabbi Eliezer, and before we read the Gemara itself, we glance at the side. We have a nosei topic heading, and this topic heading also indicates that it's a long topic. It'll take us till Daf Ayin Vav Amid Beis. So that even though we are learning within the context of Daf Yomi shiurim, as those who have been listening to our shiurim throughout this Masechta have noted, we've spilled over quite often from the Daf Yomi quota. So here too, in order to complete the trend of thought that we will be exposed to, it's to our benefit to complete the sugya without breaking it in the middle, and that will take us to Daf Ayin Vav Amid Beis. Now, what have we written under our topic heading? Birur Shitas Rabbi Eliezer. We're going to analyze, clarify the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer, that a person, a husband, can issue a vow annulment from the outset before she vows. Hayim nedarim elu, the vows that she eventually utters, cholenu b'telim, is it that they take hold and then are immediately nullified? Or is it so that nothing takes hold to begin with? Sounds like an academic analysis. Is there any practical application of this? And yes, there is. Nafkamina lahapis bahen. The practical application or difference between these 2 points of analysis is there a possibility of paralleling or copying your vow and basing it on this lady's vow? It's true that the lady's vow is going to be annulled, but if I try to base my vow on what she said, if what she said takes hold and is then nullified, so there was what to take hold on. There was a vow for me to copy or to base myself on. However, if you take the other approach, that nothing even materializes by way of her vow because of the husband's initial nullification, so then my vowing and patterning it after hers, I have nothing to pattern it after. Her vow never materializes. Now we turn to the Gemara. We also have a long question marking. Take note of that. Ibayalaho. L'Rebbe Ozer. According to the Tanur Belezer, Mechal Cholen Ubetelin, is it such that her vow materializes? Chal means it starts, but it's also nullified, immediately nullified. O Dilma Lo Cholen Klal, or is the analysis that nothing gets started to begin with? In other words, the nullification that he uttered at the outset prevents any vow from even materializing. Lamai nafkamina, what difference does it make between these 2 points of analysis? We continue at the top of Amud Beis. Kagon de atfis achrina behadein nidra. If someone else, some outsider came and accepted upon himself a vow like hers. We look at Rashi at the top line. Imagine the woman's vow was accepting Nazirus upon herself, the vow whereby one abstains from wine and grape products with other restrictions that go along with that type of vow. The Omra, and she said Hareini Nazira, and in her vowing she says, I am going to be a Nazir. V'shama ish acher, and some other person heard that. V'yomer v'ani kamokach, I likewise. The Gemara continues at the end of the top line. I'amris cholin, if you say that her vow takes hold, it materializes, though an instant later it's nullified because of the husband's initial nullification. So tfisuta, havya tfisuta, that his Nazir's declaration takes hold because it's patterning a vow that she took that materialized, that became a reality, albeit for a moment. Yamers lo cholin, if you say that her vow as a result of the husband's initial nullification doesn't even materialize, lo iko mashosha, there's no substance. There's no substance for him, this outsider, to latch on in his attempt to copy her Nazirus. So that how do we settle this? What's the proper analysis? You'll notice a marking scheme. On the side of the Gemara under the Mivneh heading, we explain that you have triangles that are explained as being a ma'akav, an attempt to keep track of a give and take style Gemara. The numbering that you see features the nisyonos, the toshma, or the nisyonos lo'chiach, the Rav Ozer lo chayli klal. These are attempts to show that the vow that she utters does not materialize whatsoever. When you encounter the inverted triangle, that is, we call dechios, a rejection of whatever was attempted. The Gemara. Toshma. We're trying to figure out Rabbi Eliezer's opinion regarding the status of the vows that the lady makes in light of the initial husband nullification. So, Omer Rabbi Ozer, im hofer nedarim shebol lechlal isur, Rabbi Ozer was arguing that the initial nullification works by virtue of the fact that nedarim that have already materialized can be undone through hafara. So, lo yofer nedarim shelo bol lechlal isur, should it not be that a husband should likewise, or certainly have the power to annul vows that haven't come to restriction altogether. Well, from that phrasing, notice we dashed underline shelo bo l'chlal isur shma mina lo cholin. This would indicate that nothing even materializes. The Gemara rejects this. Mi kotani, does it say she'einon bo'in, that do not come? If it had said she'einon bo'in, so then you're right, that they do not come into existence even when she vows. But that's not what it says. Shelo bo'u kotani. The language is shelo bo'u. Adayin lo bo'u. Rashi explains, shelo bo'u kotani mashma de adayin lo nodra. That language indicates she hasn't even vowed yet. Avolich shiavo kshetidor katiti boyloch. However, when she actually vows, I still will ask, I chayli ilo. There's still room for asking the original question. In other words, from the quote here from our Mishnah, you don't shed light on our question, because the Mishnah is describing a situation because of the language shelo bo, meaning she hasn't even uttered the vow yet. When she utters the vow, that remains unclear. What happens? Does something take hold and is then nullified, or nothing gets started to begin with? Toshma Omar Lohen Rebbe Eliezer. We have a double underline marking on the side. These are explained as Hadgoshois lehokel al hakriya vaseder. These are a marking emphasis that you see here and you see later on, simply to make the reading easier, so that you know what to focus on. So let's see. Rebbe Eliezer argues as follows: Amalan Rebbe Eliezer, ma b'mokim she'ein mefer nidrei atzmo mishenodar, mefer nidrei atzmo ad shelo yodur. Mind you, in a case where a person already vowed, he cannot annul his vows. In other words, a person has no right, is not allowed to annul his own vows. Regarding one's own vows, the pasuk says, Lo yachel dvoro. He shall not violate his vow. But achirim ochalelo, others can. That's the idea of a person approaching a Torah scholar for the vow to be released. So, in immediate context, or first person context, a person cannot undo his own vows. However, he can announce ahead of time, before he vows, that he doesn't want his vows to take hold. This was explained earlier in the Masechta on Daf Chof Gimel Omid Beis, regarding a person getting up on Rosh Hashanah, the beginning of the year, and saying, all vows that I make henceforth should not be binding. So that takes place. Mokoim shemefer nidrei ishto mishetidor. In a case of a husband and wife, where a husband can annul his wife's vows, eino din shiofer nidrei ishto ad shelo tidor. So all the more so, he should be able to annul the vows of his wife even before she utters them. My love, the ishto dumya delay. Are we not then to compare whatever we're saying regarding his wife to what we know about the man himself? Mahu dolo chaylin, just like with regard to a person himself, if he arises at the beginning of the year and says, all vows that I make during this year should not have validity, it should not have any substance, we know that in effect the vows don't get started at all. So too with regard to the wife, the vows that she would utter do not get started at all. So this would be the attempt to prove one of the two sides of analysis. And as you can see, we've underlined, after we squinted af ishto, so nami lo chaylin, nothing even begins. And once again, why is that? Because we're paralleling the wife to the man himself. Lo, that is not conclusive. Ha k'di isa, ha k'di isa. With each one on its own. With regard to a man's own vows, his pre-nullification, in fact, prevents them from even getting started. However, with regard to a man and his pre-nullification of his wife's vows, there they might very well get started, but and are then immediately absolved. So this is inconclusive. We continue then. Tashma, Omru lo Rebbe Ozer. The Chachamim that disagree with Rebbe Ozer argue, as we will see in this Tanaic source, an argument. But what we have to pay attention to is from the way they argue to him, we'll then understand what his original position was. So we have to be able to then read beyond what the source itself is saying and read into what had they heard Rebbe Ozer saying in order to come to a conclusion. Of course, with our Mark Gemaras, you can jump ahead and see the dashed underlining at the bottom line where Shema Mino Lo Chaylin, that this is just another attempt, like we've seen till now, to show that according to Rebbe Ozer, the advanced nullification of the husband prevents the wife's vows from even materializing. So now let's see what they said to him. They said as follows, and they're going to be arguing from here, and we're going to see on Ayin Vav Amud Aleph as well, from, we'll call them outside sources. But it's what we will see is a certain way of looking at things when you're dealing with preventive measures. Here we're going to deal with the topic of immersion in a mikveh. Mikveh is the ritual pool in which, after immersion, so that which was defiled then becomes purified. What are we to learn from mikveh? As follows: Uma mikveh shemale es hatmei mitumason, a mikveh which enables he who has been defiled, or items that have been defiled, to become purified, to rise from their level of defilement and leave it. And yet, ein matzil al hatahurim mi litamei. If someone is already tohor, he's an undefiled individual, and he goes into the mikveh with the hope of the mikveh now providing him with tumah resistance. Well, it doesn't work. That doesn't help. It's true that a mikveh is effective in removing defilement that already exists, but it doesn't work to prevent defilement from setting upon a person that is currently tahor. So that's as far as a mikveh with its limitations. In other words, a mikveh does have purification powers, but there is some limitation. Adam she'ein ma'ale es hatmei mitum asan. A person, and maybe we have to share a word of background here. There's a concept of vessels or substances that are made into vessels that never become tomei. Amongst those items are dung, glolim, feces. That substance, waste, can be fashioned into vessels. It's called clay glolim. And clay glolim do not become tomei. They're tumah resistant. What we're going to describe here is a person takes a vessel, in this case a ring, a small item, a small metal item. It's something that is subject to defilement. And he swallows it while it's tomei, and it comes out his digestive tract at the other end. We don't view the ring as kli glolim. We don't view the ring as something that's now tohor because it went through digestive tract. In other words, a person is not a human rituarium. Let's read this in the text. Adam she'ein ma'ale es hatmein mitumasan. A person does not purify or undefile that which has already been defiled, on the grounds of it being considered not a ring anymore, but clay glolim. Eino din hu shelo yatzil ala tahurim militame. All the more so, the person would not be able to swallow a tohor ring and have it come out the other end and claim that this is a kli glolim. Now this is what the Chachomim were arguing to Rebbe Ozer. In other words, showing that the mikveh, not only the mikveh, but a mikveh and certainly a person do not have the capacity of building in a preemptive form of purification, namely, or built-in tumah resistance. Well, so if that's what they were arguing against Rebbe Ozer, what was Rebbe Ozer apparently saying with regard to the preemptive powers a husband has vis-a-vis his wife's vows? So Shema Mina, through the eyes of the Chomim, we can conclude what Rebbe Ozer must have been saying. He was saying Lo Chaylin, that in fact when a person issues an initial annulment, that the vow does not get off the ground. This you can see explained in the Rosh commentary. Second line from the bottom, Shema Mina Lo Chayli Midamaisi Rabbanon Rebbe Ozer Raya Mi Mikveh, from the fact that the Rabbanon were bringing a proof to their position from the mikveh, She'eino Matzel Torah Milukabel Tuma, that the mikveh, though it's capable of purifying that which is defiled, but it cannot build in defilement resistance. It must be that they heard Rebbe Ozer saying, Nedarim Shabal Mefer Lo Le'inyan Zeh Shelo Yochulu Klal. Rebbe Ozer was taking the position that a husband's annulment of the wife's vows ahead of time prevents them from beginning altogether. V'aho Maisi Rayon is on that point that they brought proof mikveh from the case of the rituarium, the afagav, the moil, the tuma shavra, even though the mikveh purifies that which had already become defiled. Eino moil the tuma shasido lovo shelo tochul lov. It's not effective against tuma that eventually will appear, will come, that it shouldn't take hold. For our purposes, though, what we see from this is the position of Rebbe Ozer that the advanced annulment makes it such that the vows do not even materialize. The wife's vows don't even materialize. Well, that having been said, we continue with a challenge. Amah Seifon. That's why you see an inverted triangle. What does it say in the Seifa of the mikveh source? It says, Omru lo Rebbe Ozer, the Chachomim said to Rebbe Ozer, Im matbilim kli tomei litoher. If we can immerse a vessel in a mikveh that has already become tomei, and the immersion results in its purification, Yatbilu kli tor l'chesheyitma litoher. Would you think that you can immerse a currently pure, undefiled vessel, so that when it becomes tamei, it shall then become purified? Once again, as we saw before, this is what the Chachamim were saying in opposition to Rebbe Ozer. So what must have been Rebbe Ozer's position when he was arguing about the advanced nullification? So if you keep things parallel to this, we call the Kli source. That's why we have a diamond around the word Kli, so we can refer to it as the Kli source. What must Rebbe Ozer have been saying? Well, just like they were saying that immersion cannot prevent a vessel from, when it does become tamei, to then become tahor. So what was Rebbe Ozer saying about the vows? That the annulment that the husband makes is such that when the wife utters the vow and it materializes, it then becomes nullified. Oh, so Shema Mina, from this we conclude that Chaylin. And now we have a real problem on our hands. We've got a stira between the Reisha, from which we concluded that Rebbe Ozer holds that the vows of the woman don't even get off the ground in light of the husband's initial annulment. And in the Seifa, we see that the vow would materialize. In other words, the vow takes hold, but is then instantly absolved. So what do we do with this? We have a stira between the Reisha and the Seifa. The Gemara answers that it's not a stira per se. Amri, Rabbanon lo kaimi lahoin b'taimei the Rabbi Ozer. What we're seeing here is simply that the Rabbanon were not familiar. They didn't understand Rabbi Ozer's opinion. So you notice that in both of these Tanei quotes, they begin with Omru lo. The Rabbanon, spoke to Rabbi Ozer, and the problem here is not in Rabbi Ozer, but rather it's it's from the Rabbanon standpoint that they did not understand what Rabbi Ozer was saying. So we read again from the third line, from the top of Ayin Vav Amud Aleph. Rabbanon lo kaimi lohon b'taim de Rabbi Ozer v'hochi ko amri lei, and thusly the Rabbanon were saying to Rabbi Eliezer, my sviroloch, what do you hold with regard to husband's advanced annulment of wife's vows? I sviroloch, if you take the position the chaylin b'teilin, that they materialize, but thanks to his initial annulment, they are nullified. Well, if that's your analysis, tev a kli tiyuvtach. Let the instance of the kli that we featured at the top of this summit, you can see kli in the diamond, that will be a refutation, namely that the advanced hafara is not going to be effective. Just like you can see with the immersion of the kli in a mikveh, with the anticipated hope of when it does become tameh, should become tor, which is ridiculous. That doesn't happen. And just like you would concede that doesn't happen with the vessel, so too you should concede to our position that the advanced annulment is ineffective. And lo sviroloch b'chaylin, the Rabbanon said to Rebbe Ozer, and if you don't hold that they materialize, in other words, if your position is that as a result of the advanced nullification, the vow that the woman utters doesn't materialize whatsoever, so tehevei mikveh yuftach. So then let the case of mikveh be a refutation. Namely, we saw in the case of mikveh, there is no chance of immersing to prevent tumah from ever setting in the first place. That having been said, we haven't concluded then with any degree of clarity as to what exactly is Rebbe Ozer's position regarding the husband's advanced annulment of wife's vows. Toshma, Omar Lahen, Rebbe Ozer. So the Rebbe Ozer said to the Rabbanon, Umaz royim tamein. Mind you, with regard to seeds like imagine wheat grains that became tomei. Kevon shezoran bekarka toran. When you take tomei seeds and plant them in the ground, the seeds lose their tumah. They're no longer tomei. Zruin v'oimdin lo kol shekain. Things that are already planted, that are attached to the ground, all the more so if someone tomei, let's say, touches a plant that's attached and growing from the ground, all the more so they will not become tomei. And Rebbe Ozer is using the seeds as an analogy to what he holds with regard to the husband's advanced annulment. Shma mina, so from here we see lo chaylin. The vows don't even begin. They don't even materialize. All as a result of the husband's advanced annulment. So up till now, we've seen the method of analysis of argument that Rebbe Ozer was using against the Rabbanon. The Gemara asks, now there's refocusing now, and we focus our attention on the Rabbanon. Rabbanon lo darshi kal v'chomer. Do the Rabbanon not argue using kal v'chomer logic like this? like Rabbi Ozer did, and thereby they should arrive at the same conclusion, that a man is able to annul wife's vows from the outset. Just to refresh our memories, Rabbi Ozer in the Mishnah argued that a man is able to annul before she utters the vow, and the annulment is effective. Up till now, we were simply analyzing what exactly happens when the woman utters the vow. But as far as the basic point, Rabbi Ozer said an advanced annulment is effective. The Rabbanan said an advanced annulment is not effective. But is it not so that the Rabbanan, and again, once again, we're going to be referring to a totally unrelated topic, but what we're looking at is the method of logic. And since we see elsewhere the Rabbanan employ a method of logic similar to that of Rabbi Ozer over here, should they not have come to the same conclusion? Namely, that advanced annulment is effective? So let's continue in the Gemara. V'hatanya, have we not seen the following point argued by the Rabbanan? And this topic deals with an amo evriya, a girl who the Torah says can be sold into a form of obligatory servitude by her father. And the Torah rule states that a Jewish girl can be sold into servitude up till age 12. When the girl reaches the age of Na'arus, age 12, she automatically is released. She leaves her, we'll say, employer, if you will, her master. That's basic information. So now let's read the source. Yochol yimkor odom es bito kishinara. Could it be that a father has the power, has the right to sell his daughter after age 12? Nara is the age of a girl between 12 and 12 and a half. So after she reaches age 12, can a father sell his daughter? Amris, kal v'chomer. With kal v'chomer logic, you will see that he cannot do that. Mechura kvar yoitza, a girl who had been sold as a minor, she'd already been sold. Yoitza means she leaves the servitude at age 12. Eino mechura, a girl who had not been sold into servitude prior to age 12. Eino din shaloti mocher, all the more so, she cannot be sold initially after age 12 into servitude. And we look at Rashi together. Second line under the Gemara text, Eino din shaloti mocher, certainly he will not be able to sell her. Liachar shinara, after she reaches the age of narus mishum haytaimo, because of this reason, mind you, a girl that's already been sold prior to this, she now leaves servitude at this age. All the more so, a girl who hasn't been sold to begin with by this age cannot be sold into servitude. So afkanami yehei yochol lahafer la kaidim shenotra. So too, if we just apply this kind of logic to the vows, the husband should certainly be able to issue an advanced annulment. He has all the more strength here. Where, mind you, a woman vowed, and the vow takes hold, and afterwards the husband can come along and annul it. All the more so, if she hasn't vowed whatsoever, certainly he should be able to issue an advanced effective annulment. So the question is very simply, why did the Rabbanan argue with Rabbi Eliezer regarding husbands' power in advanced vow annulment? The Gemara answers at the top of Omid Beis, of Ayin Vav Omid Beis, in yes, Ba'al Modar Shika V'chomer. We can't deny that in general the Rabbanan do accept this type of Kal V'chomer logic. The shiny hacha, but here in the case of vows and annulment, it's different. The Omar Kro, because here we're bound by a verse, a scriptural reference, which says, the pasuk says, Isha yekimenu v'isha yeferenu. Her husband can substantiate and her husband can annul. As shebolachal hokem bolachal hofer. Those kind of vows that have come to the point that they can be substantiated, be established by her husband seconding the motion, so to speak, only those kind of vows, because of the juxtaposition in the pasuk of Yekimenu Hakoma substantiating, Yefirenu is the annulment. So only those kind of vows that have come to be able to be substantiated, and that we established earlier, are only vows that have been actually uttered. So only actually uttered vows can be annulled. As Shelo Ba'alachal Hakim, vows that she hasn't yet made, which we already saw everyone accepts, cannot be substantiated, can't have advanced substantiation of her vows. Lo Ba'alachal Hafer, so those kind of vows that have not been uttered yet, they cannot be annulled. With that, we conclude our shiur for today.